Completing patterns. If you're given a list of numbers, they might be positive, they might be negative. You might be given them in this pattern with some of the numbers left out. And the question is, given a list of numbers or integers, okay, they should be in the same order here. You can't mix them around. You must be able to figure out what number you need to multiply to get the next one. So let's start off with this one right here. Let's start off with 2 and 4. I'm not going to look at this 8 right now, so I'm just going to cover him up, because if I don't, it'll probably end up just causing me, it'll probably end up causing me some trouble. So I'm going to ignore the 8 right now. And I'm only going to look at the 2 and the 4 and draw an arrow going from the 2 to the 4 like this. Okay. Now, thinking of multiplication, 2 times how much will give me 4? So 2 times what will give me 4? If I multiply 2 times 2, that will give me 4. And we know it's going to be positive because positive times a positive will give me my positive 4. So let's test that out to see if it works when we're trying to go from the next numbers. Let's draw our arrows now, going from 4 to 8. Now, let's do our rule that we figured out. We're going to times it by positive 2. Well, what's 4 times 2? Will give you 8. So that pattern is working. So now all we got to do to figure out the next 3 is write down the pattern, draw a nice little arrow like this. If you don't need the arrow, you don't need to do it. I'm going to times it by 2 again. So it's 8 times 2 is 16. Draw the arrow again just to keep it straight for myself. I'm going to times it by 2 again. 2 times 16 is 32. And the last one, 32 times 2 will give me 64 when I work it out. So always just look at the two numbers and see what do I need to multiply to get that next number. So let's check this one. I'm going to ignore the 9. I'm just going to look at the first two numbers and think. 1 times something will give me a negative 3. Well, 1 times what will give me 3? Well, I know it's going to be 1 times 3, because 3 times 1 is 3. But I've got a negative here. So will 1 times a positive 3 give me a negative 3? It won't. So I'm going to have to go 1 times a negative 3 will give me negative 3. Let's test that with the next one. So I take negative 3, and I'm going to times it by negative 3 and see what I get. Well, negative 3 times negative 3 equals positive 9, because 3 times 3 is 9, and negative times a negative is a positive. So my pattern seems to be working. To figure out the next number, I'm going to go 9 times negative 3. Well, 3 times 9 is 27. And of course, a positive times a negative is a negative. I'll do that again. Times it by negative 3 again. So what's 27 times 3? Well, if I can't do it that way, I'll go 3 times 27. 3 sevens are 21. 2 threes are 6, 7, 8. It's 81. Now, is it positive or negative? Well, we're going to have a negative times a negative, which is a positive. And the last one to do is going to be 81 times negative 3. So there's my 81. I'm going to times it by 3. Remember, you don't worry about the plus or the negative. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 8 is 24. Oh, so there we go. And then I'm going to put 243 up here. Now, is it going to be positive or negative? Well, you've got a positive 81 and a negative. So a positive times a negative will always give you a negative. Sometimes you might end up multiplying two-digit numbers. That would be numbers with 2 spots in them, 2 place values. It could be minus 21, it could be plus 21, it could be just about everything. When you do that, the same rules apply as multiplying single digits. Remember, negative times a negative is a negative times a positive is a negative. So the same rules. Okay, so if it's a negative times a positive, it's a negative. So the answer to this we know is going to be negative. We just don't know what the answer is yet. You can answer it in 2 different ways. Okay, so you'll multiply the 2 digits together and you could end up with the answer, and then you'll end up with a negative sign in front of it. So let's work that out. I'll start off with this number times this one. So 8 times 5 is 40. 2 times 8, remember, I'm ignoring this negative sign. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 4 more is 20. Now I'm going to put my 0 down because I'm starting with the next one and get rid of this 4. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2. So my total answer here when I add them up is 0, 5, 4. It's 450, and since it's a negative times a positive, my answer is going to be negative 450. So that's my answer. Another way that you could do this is the more modern way to multiply. You take the numbers, okay, 20 and 5. So you take 25 and you break it into the 20 and the 5. So there's the 20 and there's the 5 on the top. If you put it back together, you'll get 25. Then you take the 18 and you break it apart to 10 and 8. Now if you put them back together, you'd end up with 18 again. Now all you do, kind of like a multiplication table, you multiply the numbers together. Well, 10 times 20, okay, when you're multiplying by 10, all you do is add a 0 on to whatever number you're multiplying it by. 10 times 5 is 50. 8 times 20, well, 8 times 2 is 16, and then we just add a 0. And 8 times 5 is 40. Then all we have to do is simply add up our 4 numbers, 200, and then we've got 160, and then we've got 50, and then we've got 40. Add them all up, and our answer, 5 plus 4 is 9, plus 6 more is 15. Then we got 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 1 more is 450, which is the same answer that we got doing it the other way up here. The only difference is now, remember, it is a negative times a positive, so just put in your negative sign in your final answer. So you ignore the negative or the positive sign, and it should work out nicely.